There have been count them, 7 transfers out for UNC this offseason. Multiple new faces coming in from the portal and high school. Is this a healthy culture reset for North Carolina or just simply too much turnover?
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Thursday, May 18th, 2023. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, and joining me are our dudes from the Heel Tough blog. Down below me, for those of you watching, is Josh Marlowe. Off to my side is our guy, Anthony Pagnotta. It's been too long, but here we are getting back after it. We gotta make this more consistent, boys. We'll do that. Anyway, coming up on the show today, Carolina is going to do everything they can to make Drake Maye's presumptive last year in Chapel Hill different than Sam Howell's, but will it be enough? And before we get to that, though, let's talk about this basketball stuff that we led off with. 7 transfers out, as we have already talked about. Obviously, most recently, DeMarco Dunn, but along with that, Caleb Love, Puff Johnson, Dontrez Styles, Tyler Nickel, Justin McKoy, and Wilcher. And so I want to get y'all's takes on the comings and goings. So first of those transfers out, who is the biggest surprise to each of us?
Oh, that's a really tough one. I think the one that surprised me the most was probably Dontrez Styles because of where he came from in the background and just, you know, like never in my lifetime would I have thought a Kinston product would leave Carolina willingly. I thought because he's going pro, something like that. So I think that's the most surprising because if you go back to this time last year, we really liked what he did in the tournament. Was one of the only guys that got minutes off the bench for that team that went to the national championship game. And then this year just never had a consistent role or stuff like that to where it made sense why he transferred.
Yes.
But after his freshman season, it was still surprising. And then if I had to give you a second one, Puff surprised because he felt like a Carolina kid. And he felt like a kid that, even though was recruited by Roy Williams, he felt like a Hubert Davis guy. He just had the makeup. He had an infectious smile and a joy and a positivity that radiates out of Hubert Davis. And him being the younger brother of a Carolina legacy player like Cam Johnson, also a tough pill to swallow. So for me, it was those two dudes. Everybody else, it kind of made sense why they chose to exit the program the way that they did.
This is the same dude, by the way, who said yesterday after DeMarco Dunn transferred, or when we did that podcast, he said, "I'm shocked. I'm stunned. I don't really understand why this is happening." So the answer for him is everybody but Wilcher. So,
Pagnotta just throwing bows at Marlowe here. I love it.
I most shocking. I mean, I got to be honest. Like, I wasn't really stunned by any of them because, like, the ones that had the biggest shock factor to a lot of people, Puff and DeMarco, both of those guys. Like, if you saw the comments in the USA Today article from their dads, like, it made sense. Like, I kind of thought I read those and I said to myself, yeah, I don't know if these guys are coming back. I would still probably go with DeMarco Dunn just because of the timing. I think it's odd. And I said this when we were talking about him entering. You're talking about a guy that's now entering at a time where a lot of spots are already taken on other rosters. So for him to find a spot, somebody will have a spot open for him. He's a talented enough player.
Sure.
But you're limiting your options as opposed to if you would have gone in earlier, you would have had, I'm not going to say your pick of the litter, but you certainly would have had more schools that would have contacted you. Also, not the best thing for Carolina because I know there are probably people that think that means, well, you can now have 3 guys that reclassify from the 24 class. I don't want any part of that. Like 2 guys, maybe, especially if it's Stevenson, if he ends up committing to Carolina and then reclassing.
Yeah.
But I don't know about 3. And now you're kind of limited on the options that you can go out and get from the transfer portal. Like, I mean, now the guys that I'm looking at would be Kaluma from Creighton.
Trentyn.
And Julian Phillips from Tennessee, who's a guy. I mean, we saw him play in high school, but like
both of whom
really
are also
limited.
in the NBA draft and have combine invites, so could stay there.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah, there's a couple other guys in there. So, I mean, it could definitely work out for Carolina. That's the one that kind of shocked me the most, especially since like he was set up to play a pretty big role. So was Puff, but I mean, he got in there early enough where it was like, all right, makes a little sense.
Yeah. I'm going to roll with Puff as well. And for everything you already said, Marlo, I'm not going to need to rehash any of that, but that one really caught me by surprise. I was like, man, this is going to be Puff's year to really lean into stuff, hopefully stay healthy. And I guess at the end of the day, that is what it is. Now that's the outflow. Let's talk about the inflow. And as of the time of this recording, there are 4 incoming transfers. Paxson Wojcik, you've got Cormac Ryan, Jae'lyn Withers, and of course, Harrison Ingram coming from Stanford. I don't want to ask the question, which is the most talented. I want to ask the question, which of those 4 is going to have the biggest impact on this year's team?
Well, I think if Carolina has the type of year you expect to have, the answer is the guy who's the most talented. That's Harrison Ingram. Since Cam Johnson departed, as great as Leaky Black was as a defender, Carolina has been missing a wing that could impact the game from an offensive standpoint. And if you go and you look at Harrison Ingram's numbers, 10.5 points, shooting in the low 30s from 3, it's not sexy, but he's also playing at Stanford. I'd like to think at Carolina, we got better players, got better coaching, a better system, playing with all ACC caliber guys like RJ Davis, Armando Bacot, should make the game a lot easier for him to be able to contribute on a much more consistent basis and impact the game. And I also feel like Cormac Ryan will be a big part of what Carolina does. Shade, we've been talking all offseason long. I feel like Carolina's going to be a 3-guard lineup next year.
I hope so.
Hubert Davis said when he got introduced as the head coach, that was his vision for his program. You're bringing a guy that has been in this country since he came over on the Mayflower, as Anthony likes to say all the time. He has a lot of experience. He's done it in this conference for 3 years. So I think he's going to be a big part too. But the answer is Harrison Ingram, because that's a guy in the 2-3 years of the transfer portal that even I salivated and said, go get me that type of talent. Because I feel like if we got him to Chapel Hill, he could do some big time things. And now hopefully he can live up to all of his status coming out of high school. McDonald's All-American 5-star prospect. Hopefully we get that version of him next year in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, you'd certainly hope so, as you said, with a bigger talent around him instead of him having to be the man as he was at Stanford. It just makes sense. What about you, Pagnotta? Who are you going with?
Well, I'm going to go with the man that came over and was a part of the Jamestown colony himself, Mr. Cormac Ryan, baby. That's the running joke. I knew it. I knew the minute that there were reports starting to surface that Carolina had talked to him. I had made so many jokes about him for how long he's been in college, for having the name of a pilgrim. And now he is here. And ladies and gentlemen, he is beautiful. And he is going to be exactly what Carolina needs. I think the reason why I think he's probably the most impactful is because Carolina needs shooting. We know that from this past year. That was really the thing that Carolina lacked for the majority of the season and was never really able to find from the group of guys that we just talked about, the guys that are exiting the program. And look, clearly Carolina values him pretty highly. That's part of the reason why probably DeMarco Dunn left. So he's a guy that's done it in the ACC. He's averaged, this past year, he averaged over 13 points a game. Like this guy's legitimate. He can score the basketball. Carolina needs those types of players. I think Harrison Ingram will be impactful, but Cormac Ryan's a guy that has done it before, where he can be the guy that can lead you on the offensive end if you need him to. I think at times Carolina just didn't have that outside of guys like Armando Bacot. And then as we rolled through the season, RJ Davis, but then of course RJ gets hurt. You saw Armando struggle a little bit at the end of the year, and there just wasn't anybody else that was able to really pick up the slack. Cormac Ryan can do that for you. And he could shoot the lights out at times. So that's exactly what Carolina needs. I think Harrison Ingram will be very impactful as well. But to me, Cormac Ryan's going to be the guy when we're sitting here at the end of the year, we say, man, he really had the biggest impact this season.
I think to me, it's a clear 2 tiers between those 4. The 2 guys you guys have mentioned, I think are the clear 2 front runners of like biggest impact. And then I think with both, I think Withers is probably tier B and then Wojcik at tier C. But yeah, it's got to be between those 2 guys. Something that excites me about Ryan is it feels like he, in addition to what we're talking about, like the on-court stuff, I think Ryan is going to bring a leadership quality that the team just didn't have last year, kind of in a way that Brady Manek did 2 seasons ago. That's just not who Armando Bacot really is. That's not who RJ Davis really is. Although I think RJ will probably step up and take more of that type of role this year. It feels like Ryan has a chance to step in and be one of, if not the leader in the locker room for the team. That'll be interesting for us to watch. Last question, and then we're going to change from basketball over to football. 7 out, 4 in, plus the 2 freshmen in, and who knows who else is yet to come with the 3 open scholarships. The question I want to wrap the basketball conversation with is this. For North Carolina, is this a good culture reset? Because it's essentially been 4 years of like outside of the national championship run in a lot of ways. Or is this just too much turnover and it's going to be another year 3 of Hubert Davis is going to be just about as rough as the first 2?
I think the answer is to be determined. We got to see the results on the court. But here's what I'll say. The answer was that it was needed. Like Carolina just needed to do this. As hard as it is to see and go through it, like it's been a hard thing for me as a fan going in this new era, shipping guys in and then shipping guys out because of the transfer portal, because that's not who Carolina basketball is. It's not what it's been. And so it's been a really hard thing to get used to. But it was needed after what happened last year because it was a failure. It was unacceptable. You went preseason number 1. You lose 4 games in a row in the middle of December. You somewhat rebound, and then it just all fell apart down the stretch, and you missed the tournament. You skipped the NIT to reset the culture. And so I feel like, yes, it's a good thing and that it was needed because this is a big year for Hubert Davis.
It is.
The last time a head coach missed the tournament back-to-back times, he wasn't asked back for a 4th year. And we're not in the business of firing Hubert Davis. I did that year 1. I was a moron. And then he took us on the brink to a national championship.
I tried to talk you off your ledge, Marlo.
Yeah. Like I don't want to go through another coaching search this soon. So, is it a good thing? We'll wait and see as the results on the court. The most important thing is that it was needed because what we saw down the stretch last year, where this team could not get up and make the type of winning plays they had to make in important games, a la at home against Duke, is not something we're used to seeing from this program. So hopefully what he's done will reinvigorate the team in the program, and we see a higher level of winning basketball next year.
All right, Pagnotti, you heard Marlo's take on that. Good, maybe. Needed, definitely. Where are you at?
By the way, I mean, you snake your way out of that one. You said to be determined. Come on, man. We're in this industry where you have to. There are absolutes here. I think it's yes. I think it. And I mean, it's all what he said. Like you needed this culture change. You could tell at the end of the year. Like we all knew, we all knew, like if the team did not make the tournament, we knew from what came out of that locker room after the ACC tournament, this team there was no chance they were playing in the NIT, and it came to fruition. So you needed to just have a better environment around the program. So I think, the guy, if you're just trying to compare things, I think Harrison Ingram really sort of changed what this answer would have been. If you would have asked us before Harrison Ingram, we probably would have told you, no, this didn't work out for Carolina. There was too much turnover. There's too many empty roster spots or whatever. But with Harrison Ingram in there, with Cormac Ryan, who's a veteran, Jae'lyn Withers, who's played in the ACC before and can be a guy that if he has to start for you, great. If he comes off the bench, even better. And then Paxson Wojcik, who, can stretch the floor, can shoot it a little bit, can rebound. I think this is a group that's in a good spot. And you look at some of the teams that we've seen have success, especially in this past year's tournament. And one that Josh brings up a lot whenever we talk about it on the podcast, the Four Corners podcast, is it's San Diego State. I mean, they went to the national title game with a team that was you basically built through the transfer portal. So I look, Carolina, they're not really fully built through the transfer portal. That's the other thing. You've got Armando coming back. You've got RJ coming back. You got some talent that's coming in, guys like Simeon, Wilcher, and you got some young guys that are going to get better on the roster. But I think this is a good collection of guys. And I really think sitting here now, this is a tournament team. And this is one that, if you add another piece or two, and there's a guy that is rumored to potentially be coming that we think will be a huge addition if he does. You could argue they are a second weekend of the tournament team, and we couldn't do that a couple weeks ago.
No, absolutely not. Well, we will wait to see if what we see on paper comes to fruition on Roy Williams' court. Hopefully, indeed, it does. Now, turning our attention to the football field, should we prepare ourselves for a letdown similar to Sam Howell's final year, or did we learn from that and we're about to blow the roof off of this thing in the fall? We'll talk about it in just a second. But first, this episode is brought to you by our brand new sponsor, Bird Dogs. As we move into summer and short season, I just bought a couple pairs of Bird Dog shorts for myself for the first time. Now, typically I'm like whatever about shorts. I don't really care, but I legitimately look forward to the days when I know I'm going to be wearing my Bird Dog shorts because they're so comfortable, much more than my other shorts or pants. I don't know what it is. It's that stretchy fabric maybe, but I love the way they fit. I love the way they make me feel. And also they work in all sorts of environments. If I'm at work or out at a party or on a date with my wife, I can wear Bird Dogs. Also, they're super practical. I record in this room that gets really hot, but because of the liner in Bird Dogs, it keeps me cooler and feeling much more comfortable as I record the show. So if you want to feel the same way as I do, go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. And when you enter promo code LockedOnCollege, they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. You can't pass that up. So go check out Bird Dogs right now, our new sponsor at Locked On. There were massive expectations for North Carolina and for Sam Howell heading into his final year at UNC 2 seasons ago. Coming off a strong year, but losing a lot around him, Carolina just didn't have the team success, and he didn't have the individual success we expected, and he winds up as a 5th round pick. The question now, is that going to happen again, or has Mack Brown done enough this offseason to make Drake Maye's presumptive final year in Chapel Hill different than the outcome of Sam Howell's? Let's start on the offensive side of the football.
All right, I guess I'm going. So I'm the football guy. So I guess I go first here.
Take it, Pagnata.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure. I'm being respectful. Yeah,
Marlo went basketball first, Pagnata football first.
I mean, look, with the offense, I think it's a much different situation because you go back to 21 and you look at everything that Carolina was replacing. You're replacing 2 of the really better running backs that you'd had in a long, long time at Carolina. In Michael Carter, Javonte Williams, maybe the best 1-2 punch you've ever had at running back. And then you're replacing Dyami Brown. I just, the weapons just weren't the same around him. And the other thing is like, and look, I hate when we have these conversations about this because look, I love my guy Sam. I again followed him since he was a freshman in high school. Like that's my dude. I covered a game from him every single year. I broke him down on the website. Then I followed him all through college. Now I'm following him at the NFL level. Drake Maye's a better quarterback than Sam Howell was. And because he's a superstar. Like it's just that simple. And I've seen a lot of people that are extremely critical of him, like Pro Football Focus. They put up a stat on the timeline, a couple days ago, talking about him when, he's throwing from a clean pocket. And a lot of people are like, well, he just can't handle the pressure. No, he can't handle playing behind an offensive line that was as bad as it was late last year. Like this dude is extremely talented. No quarterback is going to thrive when you got 2-3 guys right in your face at all times. So I do think this group is set up a lot better though. They can run the football. I mean, I know Mack Brown, one of the things he's talked about is we got to find a rotation in that backfield. Well, you got Elijah Green who can carry the load. You've got Amarian Hampton who flashed a lot last year. And then you've got guys behind them that are battling for roles. I mean, there's a chance guys like Caleb Hood.
Yeah.
This
time last year, we thought British Brooks might be the starter for crying
like
out
they
loud.
might not even factor in those types of guys. So like you have no idea. You got all that talent back there. Wide receiver, I mean, I love Dontrez Walker. There are a lot of people throughout the country that think he's going to have a huge year. Nate McCullum, very solid, did it at Georgia Tech. Now you're in an offense that's going to actually know how to throw the football and not lose every quarterback to injury, we're hoping. And then, I mean, you look at where those tight ends were back in 21. They weren't anywhere near in the same spot as they are now. You got Bryson Nesbitt, who, I mean, there's people that think this dude, as of right now, probably day 2 pick in the NFL draft. If he goes off, he could become a day 1 guy. He's so prototypical to what the game wants these days. And he's coming off the best receiving season from a tight end since Eric Ebron. You got Kamari Morales, who I think gets disrespected a lot, especially first half of the season, Kamari Morales, who finds the end zone all the time. And then the second half of the year, he somehow disappears. And then John Copenhaver. So like the weapons for me around him are great. And the offensive line is solid. I mean, it's, I still have questions about them. Another new coach. But I really do think that they're going to take even another step from last year. It's just about being consistent all the way through, because first 10 games of the year, well, first 9, because they struggled a little bit against Wake, they were really, really good. Yeah. And then they dropped off in those final 5 games of the year, and things became a little bit of a catastrophe.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's what I'll say. From a weapon standpoint, yes, Carolina's got more than enough talent around him to get the most out of him, to make him a number 1 overall pick in the draft, to compete and win games at the ACC level. The biggest issue isn't the talent around him. It's the coaching around him. And Chip Lindsey, if you go back and look at his past 2 stops, we're talking about a coordinator that had play calling duty stripped. And with a guy like Drake Maye, you would have felt like Mack Brown could have been aggressive going and getting a rock star offensive coordinator, or just a much more polished coordinator, not a guy that, like I said, the last 2 times had his play calling duty stripped away. And so that's going to be the thing. Yeah. If this hire works out, Carolina's offense is going to score points. Drake Maye is going to put up numbers, and this team will probably compete to win 8, 9, maybe 10 games. If it's not, and his play calling issues that hindered him at Auburn and Central Florida show back up, then maybe you're looking at a situation where Carolina is a middle-of-the-road team that's fighting for a bowl berth at the end of the year, which would not be what you want to do with Drake Maye. Like, you want to be able to send him off the right way. And I don't know what the right way is at Carolina from football. Like, maybe it's going 9-3, getting back to the ACC championship game, and you win your bowl game to get to 10 wins. I don't know, but I love what he has around him. I just don't know if he's got the best coaching around him. And,
yep.
You know, if it does work out, the kid's proven he's the second best quarterback in the country behind Caleb Williams. And
Isaac, can I say one other thing about the situation? I brought this up on our podcast on that. Yes, it's a different one, believe it or not. Heel Tough blog podcast for the football. I wonder, what is it just Chip that's going to call plays? Because you've got Freddie Kitchens, who's called plays at the NFL level.
He better not.
And you've got Lonnie Galloway. And if you remember, Isaac,
he had play calling duties in the bowl game last year.
One of the just unbelievable moments under Larry Fedora was he had 3 different guys that called plays at one time in his final year. It included himself. He had a guy that called first down plays. He had a guy that called second down plays. And he had a guy that called third down plays. So I wonder how things are sorted out. I really hope Mack Brown, with all his experience, you can't be that stupid, right? Like, no. You've got to have one guy. But I do wonder if the different voices, what is that going to do? It could be really beneficial because you have a lot of different voices, especially a guy that's been in the NFL before, and Clyde Christensen too. But it could also be something that holds you back if you have too many guys that are, arguing, they have different ideas. that kind of stuff. That's something that's certainly interesting on the play calling and coaching side of things.
Interesting. Yep. Well, we'll keep our eyes on all of that. As you guys said, it seems like the talent is there at a higher level than it was in Sam Howell's last year. Plus, the Drake Maye is over Sam Howell. Like, we just got to call that what it is, as you said earlier. Now, the question is, regardless of what Drake Maye and the offense do, UNC can't just outscore everyone.
Are we sure?
The defense will the defense update, will the defense under Gene Chizik be able to do enough to match the offensive output to help get more wins? We're going to talk about that in just a second. All right, we're joined here today on Locked On Tar Heels by our guys Josh Marlowe and Anthony Pagnotta. We've talked about Carolina's offense. We got to flip our attention to this defense. And obviously last year, the big stories as you look at the three levels is the linebackers were the most consistent, albeit not much depth there. And then you look at the guys in front of and behind them, and that's where just the big missteps were on the defensive line and in the secondary. Pagnotta, I know you were appropriately very critical of them last year, not in any sort of inappropriate way, but I thought you gave them the criticism that they were due. Are we still there in front of and behind the linebackers, or have there been steps taken in the right direction?
Yeah, I got to tell you, this is the thing. I don't know. I want to believe. I want to believe.
Oh no, it's a yes or no question. Answer the question.
He called you out for what you did earlier.
So if I had to say right now, I would say no.
Okay.
And I would say no because first of all, the coach is still the same on the D line. I get it, and I think Ted Monachino will help. Because, I mean, you don't coach the NFL level. You don't coach for the Ravens. You don't coach with Terrell Suggs in college and have a mark that still stands to this day for the most single season sacks. And you're just a slouch. Like he's going to bring ideas to the room. But I wonder if, Tim Cross, I mean, they kept him in place because he's recruited so well. And I get it. But if you're not developing talent along the D line, what does it matter? Like, why? That I don't understand that thinking from Mack Brown. It's again goes back into the loyalty. And then on the back end of this defense, that one's not really the coaching because I like Charlton Warren. I think first year back under him, trying to sort of navigate. The other thing that's weird, and I've brought this up before. You're trying to navigate you and Gene coming in and basically inheriting the rest of the staff. That was an odd, that was a very strange thing. Like, why did you do that? If you're going to hire Gene Chizik, let him hire his own guys. Yeah. But I think, he's a guy that's proven he's done it before. I like Jason Jones. I thought that was probably the best hire of the offseason. I question not the corners. I like the corners. I like everything that we heard about Elijah Huzzy. You're bringing back guys that we saw do some good to solid things at the end of last year in Marcus Allen, Legend Cavazos, and they've got some depth there. They liked what they saw from Tayon Holloway. Safety right now seems like a complete disaster to me. I want to know, like, well, what are the answers there? Like Jaquarius Conley transfers out of the program. That's probably your most sheerly talented safety. Yeah. How do you let that guy leave? How is he gone? But Gio Biggers is still going to be a starter. And it's no slight to Gio, but like he's a guy that's a backup. Like we've seen him. We know what he is. So I just like that's what's driving me a little bit crazy on the back end there. But you never know. Like we saw good things out of Will Hardy. Now he's going to have a whole offseason to sort of improve. Health's going to be the big thing for him. And then you've got Antavius Lane, who's transferring in. Antavius Lane. I pronounce his name wrong all the time. He's transferring in. You got Derek Allen, the brother of Marcus, that's coming in. They seem to have liked what they saw from him. So there's new guys in the room. But, I mean, the way that Mack Brown talked about it in the spring, I don't feel confident. And it sucks because the linebackers are outstanding. I wrote an article on that I posted on the website about the linebackers. And, I mean, I said it. I think Cedric Gray and Powell Eccles, I think they could both be All-Americans. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying first team, but, like, third team guys. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. They're that good. On3 Sports had him ranked as the 6th best returning linebacking core. And it feels like, you talk about wasting Drake Maye. Well, you're wasting a heck of a linebacking core too. So I want to believe that this unit can take a step forward. And on the D line, like, you can't go backwards. If you do, I mean, you might as well just not play D line. You might as well just play 7-on-7. Like, so I mean, but I got to see it to believe it, because we've been here before. We came on here last year, Isaac. We were pumped up. We said, look, Gene Chizik's back. We got all his talent. This is more than he had the last time. And we said, let's be positive. Well, now I'm not saying I'm being negative, but I'm in that prove it to me mode before I believe it. So right now I'd say no.
Yeah, no, I mean, mine might come across more negative. Tim Cross should have been fired.
Okay.
Like, of all the changes that we made this offseason, like, you're willing to part ways with Drake Maye, a former player, a beloved player by the fan base, and stuff like that. But you're not willing to move on from Tim Cross, a guy that, has more talent than any defensive line coach has had at UNC since Butch Davis was here. Like, they've got dudes, if you look at their high school recruiting rankings and stuff like that. And when you're getting pushed around by Virginia and Georgia Tech, I don't know what else needs to be said for him to prove that it's not working. And that's the thing. And look, I know he's a great recruiter. And I know that, he did a lot from a leadership standpoint in that locker room and stuff like that. But his position group has not and does not produce consistently enough. And it doesn't matter how good your linebacking core is. It doesn't matter how good your corners and your safeties are. A good defense starts up front, because that's what makes it easier for the linebackers to do their job, for the corners to have to cover for less time, for the safeties to come down in the box and make plays. And, when they're getting pushed into upset Gray or Power Eccles, it makes their jobs a lot harder. And so it's really frustrating. There needs to be a sense of urgency from Mack Brown when it comes to him in that position. Like, if we come out the first month of the year and we're still getting pushed around, we're not getting any pressure on the quarterback, it's going to be really hard to just sit there and to defend him, because I think
then it's App State all over again.
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like if that position group improves and they get somewhat of consistent pressure on the quarterback, I don't think the safety position will be as disastrous as it's been. And maybe that's what's happening in the spring, was the defensive line didn't take a step forward. So Mack Brown didn't get to see enough from that position group. So it's really unfair to the back seven of the defense, because it doesn't matter how good they are individually or collectively. If that defensive line is not better, this defense is going to give up points. It's going to give up yards, and they're going to lose games like last year that they probably shouldn't lose.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing with Tim Cross for me. It's kind of like you were saying, Joe, like, if he's so good at recruiting, make him a recruiting coordinator and get a coach. It's like, I often think about, like, just because somebody can run a good political campaign doesn't mean that they can govern well, right? Like, get somebody to run your campaign and be a good candidate, but then I want to see somebody govern. It's that same kind of principle to me. And so
you need a Ben Wyatt from Parks and Rec. Like, he was great at running stuff. He just wasn't, he wasn't good at actually, being the governor or whatever.
I love that we had a Parks and Rec reference just now. Thank you, Pagnotta.
That's right. I got you, buddy.
I just want to sit here like Ben Wyatt and just like,
see, this is why you missed us, man. Like, you ain't getting this with anybody else that's coming on, right?
Gosh, and I love it because I just get to sit here and be an arbiter and let you guys bark at each other like an old crotchety married couple, and it's beautiful. And I'm
that's what we are at this point. So, going on 15 years.
It's a beautiful thing. I need to send you guys an anniversary gift. So, last thing on the way out. No, like, looking through the schedule. I don't want to go game by game. Just in a word, right now, FanDuel has Carolina's over-under win total set at 8.5. What are we taking?
Well, I'll go over, but slightly. I got him at 9. He got Drake Maye. I mean, that's the reason to believe. And we talked about the weapons that he's got. I didn't even mention the guys that are coming back, guys like Pacer, Gavin Blackwell, who took a step. So I think that offense is
Andre
just
Green
primed
Jr.
they're primed to have a big year. And, I think with Drake, like we've heard from Chip that he's going to keep some of the elements of Phil Longo's system in because that's what he's comfortable with. And he's just that good. We've heard from Drake that he, is improving in certain areas, that things are being done a little bit different that he thinks, are going to allow him to have more success. And I mean, look, with the defense, he talked about it. It's the D line. They got to be better. Well, hell, they can't be any worse. Right. So, I think they'll do just enough. And I think Carolina finds a way to get to 9 wins. The problem is at 9 with the generational quarterback like Drake Maye, do Tar Heel fans see that as even successful?
Good question. Marlo?
Yeah, no. I've got the under, but just by half a game. I've got them at 8-4. I really hate. It's great for college football that we open the year against South Carolina, good regional rivalry, neutral site field. If this was a year we were playing, FAMU in week 0, whatever, maybe I'd push that win total to 9 because I think Carolina will lose that opener to South Carolina. So I've got them 8-4, which for most years, that's the expectation. You go 8-4, no one's going to complain. 8-4 with Drake Maye is not what you want in what would be his swan song in Chapel Hill. So hopefully along the way, that defensive line gets more production so they can win 9, maybe even 10 games.
Yeah, I'm going to slightly take the over as well. I'm going to, just for the good omen of it, I'm going double digits because of the foibles at the end of last season of not getting there. Give me 10, even if I think it's kind of a reach. Why not? Let's go reaching for the stars with one last go round of Drake Maye. Fellas, thanks so much for hopping on. Folks, make sure you go check out our guys on the Heel Tough blog at HTB_Josh on Twitter and at HTB Anthony. That man don't need no underscores in his. Friends, we'll be back with you tomorrow on the show. You everydayers, thanks so much for being with us. We'll have a mailbag episode ready for you, answering all sorts of questions. Please go leave a review at Apple Podcasts and anywhere else you do so. You can follow our show at Locked On Heels. You can follow me at Isaac Shade. Shoot an email, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and leave a comment. Hey, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel, isn't it? You know it to be true. We'll be right back with you tomorrow, but until then, peace.